Thank you for joining us in This Week in Turkey. I am Murat, Türsan. Tonight, the opposition expands the coalition. Erdoğan visits the UAE and will have Dr. Selin Nasi from Ankara Policy Center to comment. The Alawite Houses of Worship files complaints over electricity bills. A gruesome homicide rocks the nation. And Turkey's megastar Tarkan drops a new song, and it gets political. Dr. Kenan Sharpe returns to give us his thoughts. Starting off with politics tonight, the 6 opposition leaders meet at a work dinner for the first time ever in an attempt to expand the coalition. Chairs from CHP, E-Party, DEVA, Future, Felicity, and Democrat Party come together in Ankara to discuss a transition to a strengthened parliamentary system. But there are those who feel left out. Left-wing parties of Turkey, namely HDP and Workers' Party, say that they didn't expect an invite, but feel offended nonetheless, and offer a third left-wing coalition against the current two.
Turkey's opposition finally came together and gave the long-awaited big picture. CHP Chair Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, İYİ Parti's Meral Akşener, Felicity Chair Temel Karamollaoğlu, Democrat Party's Gültekin Uysal, DEVA Chair Ali Babacan, and Future Party's Ahmet Davutoğlu met for a work dinner for the first time on Saturday. In a joint statement, the leaders said that a transition back to the strengthened parliament system was a common priority and that a detailed memo would be released on February 28th. The statement read, "The fundamental reason for this economic crisis is undoubtedly the arbitrary and unruly administration implemented under the presidential government system." President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan lost no time in commenting on the meeting on the plane ride returning from his visit to the UAE. He said, "This nation voted for the presidential system. The fact that they don't want to accept this shows that they are disrespecting the will of the nation. And on the other hand, they are driving HDP insane. They should let them into the coalition already." Turkey's third biggest party, the HDP, was not invited. HDP co-chair Mithat Sancar explained that they weren't expecting an invitation, but added that the opposition coalition considered themselves the absolute debate platform. Chair of Workers' Party of Turkey, Erkan Baş, also commented and reiterated the option of a third coalition. "If we are counting the days for the fall of AKP today, this is the work of the people. The future of Turkey is the People's Alliance. We agree together to create a third alliance against those who compete on the right, against those who do not dare to look to the left."
And President Erdoğan was in Abu Dhabi this week, armed with a smile and a sales pitch. President Erdoğan met with Crown Prince Al Nahyan and wealthy investors to promote Turkey as a prime investment opportunity. These two states signed 13 memorandums of understanding in climate change, tech and manufacturing, cultural exchange, agriculture, shipping, youth, natural disasters, meteorology, and media and communications. The two states also penned a letter of intent in defense technologies cooperation, but no solid deal was made. This appeared to be a meeting mostly to promote Turkey to investors. Additionally, Israeli President Isaac Herzog is gearing up for a visit to Turkey. Will reigniting relations with Israel cost Turkey its gains in the Gulf? To answer that question, we'll have Dr. Selin Nasi for analysis. But let's go to that story first.
President Erdoğan visited the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, on Monday. The two states signed a total of 13 memorandums, but no solid agreements. This visit is a first in 9 years and is significant, due to Turkey's accusations that the United Arab Emirates was the mastermind behind the July 15th coup attempt. After the meeting with Al Nahyan, Erdoğan attended a meeting with investors where he gave a sales pitch. Erdoğan stated that Turkey constituted a very attractive investment opportunity and that its legal framework was prime for investments. The thawing relations between the two countries have been puzzling many for some time. The relations first began improving through a series of phone calls in mid-2021. The relations between Ankara and Abu Dhabi started to deteriorate after the Arab Spring protests of 2011, the ongoing conflicts in Libya and Syria adding to the worsening of relations. Additionally, Israeli President Isaac Herzog is set to visit Turkey in the upcoming weeks. Herzog's visit will be yet another historic moment in the two nations' relations. Israel and Turkey had been at political odds since the late 2000s for AKP's condemnation of the Gaza War of 2008 and a series of political crises that followed.
Joining me now for analysis, Dr. Selin Nasi from Ankara Policy Center, London representative. Dr. Nasi, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and good afternoon from stormy London.
Oh, it's our absolute pleasure. Hope you're staying dry out there. So let's start with the meeting itself. President Erdoğan's visit to Crown Prince Al Nahyan was a reciprocal meeting to one that took place last October. Sources at the time had reported that President Erdoğan had secured a $10 billion deal. This time, the two states signed 13 cooperation agreements and a letter of intent concerning cooperation in defense manufacturing. President Erdoğan stated that Turkey was a prime location for investment in addition. Now, really, was this a consequential meeting? Did Erdoğan get what he wanted? And what did he want for that matter?
Well, overall, it was good. As you said, Turkey and the UAE signed cooperation agreements covering several areas, including economy, defense, and technology. And again, as you said, during this visit, the UAE Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed also pledged some investments worth $10 billion for Turkey. And prior to this visit, we know back in January that Turkey made a swap deal with the UAE to bolster its foreign currency reserves. And apart from these, both sides have changed their rhetoric towards each other, a dramatic one, I should say. So yes, the visit served its purposes to an extent. But I think we shouldn't only evaluate the success of this visit at face value by solely looking at the number of digits written on deals. Not that it's unimportant, it is, but there is more to it. It is true that Turkish economy is in dire straits. We are stuck in a currency crisis. We have high inflation. We have high unemployment. And economic challenges have been aggravated by the pandemic as much as the government's insistence on implementing unorthodox policies. And Turkey, we know that is not a resource-rich country like Russia or Saudi Arabia. Turkey needs foreign direct investment to keep its economy afloat. So this is one of the major drivers of Turkey's foreign policy reset, obviously. But there is another one which is very much related to the first one, but even perhaps more important in terms of its long-term implications, and that is how to overcome Turkey's regional isolation. Policymakers in Ankara for quite a while have acknowledged they had to face the fact that they had misread the course of developments in the region, in the Middle East, in the last decade, and that the power vacuum caused by Turkey benefited its own rivals. So they have embarked on a diplomatic campaign to mend fences with countries in the region, not only with the UAE, but also with Egypt, with Saudi Arabia, and Israel. And this process also receives strong backing from the United States, because if it goes well, if completed, then this reconciliation process as a whole will pave the way for Turkey's integration into an anti-Iranian axis in the region. So from this perspective, President Erdoğan's visit to the UAE is important because it affirms Ankara's foreign policy reset, which is followed closely by other countries in the region. They are trying to see whether Ankara is sincere in taking these steps and that the change is not only tactical. So therefore, this visit is likely to set a precedent for other visits in the future, which may translate into more investment deals, several other deals. We'll see.
I see. And let's expand on Turkey-UAE relations a little bit. And of course, we can't really talk about Turkey and UAE without pointing out the elephant in the room. Turkey's Minister of Interior, Süleyman Soylu, in particular, has accused the UAE of funding the coup attempt of July 15, 2016, that sought to overthrow the Erdoğan government. Clearly, Erdoğan government once considered UAE an existential threat. Now, how is it that they are willing to forgive and forget now?
It is not an easy turn, I must say. It's painful. But it's not something peculiar to Turkey. We know that creating enemies at home and abroad is very common in populist regimes. Inventing enemies help populist leaders consolidate their power, consolidate support. But given the state of economy, Turkish economy, other serious problems the Turkish government is facing today, I think this slogan, like Turkey on its own versus the rest of the world, this slogan has served its purpose at the domestic sphere. It no longer even exceeds its benefits. Its losses exceeds its benefits in a way. So therefore, what I see is that government is looking for an alternative narrative, a positive one that is based on Turkey's bolstering its soft power through enhanced diplomatic engagement with its neighbors. This may resonate with wider segments in the Turkish society, say in the upcoming elections, but it also may help fix Turkey's tarnished international image. In addition to attracting foreign capital, of course, by presenting Turkey as an island of peace and stability in the region. So their thinking goes, I assume.
Fair enough, fair enough. And finally, Turkey isn't only extending an olive branch to the UAE. Israeli President Isaac Herzog is gearing up for a visit to Turkey as well. Now, Turkey and Israel have been mending relations for a little while now. Reportedly, Turkish intelligence has aided Mossad in foiling several assassination plots aimed at Israel. Israeli nationals, I should say. Now, why is Turkey making nice with Israel as well? And really, could this olive branch risk spoiling Turkey's attempts at reconciling with the Gulf states?
On the contrary, relations between the Gulf countries and Israel have never been closer. And traditionally, Turkey has always maintained a balance in its relations with Israel and the Arab world, and always avoided alienating the Arab countries in particular. So at a time when most of the Arab countries maintain friendly ties with Israel, it is only absurd for Turkey to insist on keeping a distance. Let's refresh our memories a bit. Turkey called back its ambassador from Israel in 2018 in response to the U.S. decision to move its embassy to Jerusalem, and partly to protest Israel's disproportionate use of force to crack down Palestinians protesting along the Gaza border. But let's ask frankly, what did Turkey accomplish by calling back its ambassador? How did we contribute to the Palestinian cause? Are Palestinians better off today? I think there's something that we are missing, and so did the policymakers in Ankara. In the post-Arab protests period, unfortunately, rolling back Iran's regional power has increasingly overshadowed the Palestinian issue. Yet the Turkish government rallied the Palestinian cause as if it was a domestic issue, and for both domestic purposes and to lead the Ummah in the region, so on and so forth. But more importantly, it embraced a pro-Hamas stance with regard to the Palestinian question. But as a result of this, Turkey has become marginalized, while Egypt and Qatar rose to the occasion, and they played active role in the settlement of conflicts between Hamas and Israel in the Palestine. They took part in projects, humanitarian projects, economic projects that serve to increase the life standards of Palestinians. History shows that Turkey is able to play a more constructive role in the Palestinian issue, in the settlement of issues between Israelis and Palestinians, when it maintains cordial ties with Israel. As a matter of fact, yesterday, Turkish President's advisor and spokesperson Ibrahim Kalın and the Deputy Prime Minister Sedat Önal were in Jerusalem. They discussed preparations for Israeli President's visit to Turkey. But with this occasion, they also had the chance to visit Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah, at first after many years. So this is something that we should underline, I think. As to why Turkey is seeking normalization with Israel, well, we have already touched upon and talked about some of the factors that fostered a policy change on Turkey's side. I should perhaps also add the changing power dynamics in the Middle East and the Biden administration's taking office. And if you let me elaborate, the regional security environment has been undergoing a major change. The Abraham Accords, in a way, formalized the ongoing covert rapprochement between Israel and the Gulf countries. And the main reason was the perceived Iranian threat in the region. Whereas the Biden administration's taking office also pushed regional actors to realign themselves in a way. They were very much concerned about their mutual relations with Washington, as much as the prospect of President Biden's embracing a moderate approach with Iran. So Turkey's overtures to Israel and other countries are very much related to and influenced by this regional realignment process, in my perspective, in my point of view. And in this context, we should also add that, highlight an important development. The Israeli elections of 2020, which put an end to Prime Minister Netanyahu's 12-year-old reign, made it easier for the Turkish government, for President Erdoğan, to make a move. And by improving also, it was an opportunity. So was the Oknen couple, the Israeli couple's arrest and their release, because it provided an opportunity for the governments to start talking directly with each other. And if you ask me what else Turkey is expecting by improving relations with Israel, on top of the things that we have already covered, I can say that Ankara, given the special relations between Israel and the United States, Ankara is also hoping to get some support from Israeli lobbies in Washington and getting Washington's ear, perhaps. And so that can be also considered as an important motivation.
I see. Dr. Nasi, thank you for making sense of it all, and thank you for being able to join us tonight. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is mine.
In other news, the president reclassified cemevis. Alawites' houses of worship, or cemevis, had been receiving insanely high power bills this year, as the government does not recognize them as houses of worship, but had them classified as commercial real estate. According to the president, cemevis are still not considered houses of worship this week, but he is willing to reclassify them into residential status. This olive branch came too late for some, however, as many are complaining that the bills this month did not go down, but rather went up.
This week, hundreds of Alawite institutions filed for a complaint in light of the exorbitant power bills received nationwide after the price hikes instituted by the government. Known as cemevis, Alawite houses of worship are not recognized in Turkey and thus are not subsidized by the government. The cemevis, previously considered commercial spaces by the government, received some of the highest power bills this month. During a press conference after his cabinet meeting on Wednesday, President Erdoğan said that the power subscription status for non-governmental organizations, including cemevis, would be changed from commercial to residential. For the Alawites, this is not enough.
Last month's bill was 5,495 liras. We thought that this bill would go down, but we got the bill in the mail today. It's 6,955 liras. So regardless of how much we yell out in the streets, telling them to lower the bills, we can't pay it. The prices go up. What a bonus for us. Payback for our speech, I suppose. It's a serious problem. You know about it, we spoke earlier. This place is not classified as a place of worship. It's classified as a commercial space. So we get a far more different bill.
In domestic news, a 16-year-old unnamed girl was murdered by her love interest this week in the province of Giresun. The 21-year-old perpetrator, Can Gökçek, is in custody. This is not Gökçek's first offense. According to the locals, Gökçek had an extensive criminal record. Reportedly, the two were involved romantically in the past and ran away together. The boy was located and arrested once the parents contacted the authorities and spent a month in prison, but was released due to his legal disability. After his release, Gökçek returned to the family home and murdered the 16-year-old girl. The story is still developing, and we will keep you updated on the details, but this is what we have for now.
Dayanamıyorum ben çocuğuma dayanamıyorum. Bizim çocuğumuz çok küçük, çok küçük.
Bir sene önce bunlar sosyal medya üzerinden tanışıyorlar.
A year ago, they met on social media. After they met, the girl and the boy ran away to Ankara. Afterward, they filed charges. The boy goes to prison. The girl gets taken into state custody as a protective measure. Of course, the family makes a complaint. They get caught. Afterwards, upon the request of the girl, who was in a dormitory, she gets released back into the family's custody. It's found out that the boy has several criminal charges. He tells the family that he has a psychological report stating that he is mentally unwell. And the girl doesn't want him either. So then, there is trouble between them. 2 days prior, he came here and stayed at a hotel. He takes a cab from the hotel and comes over here. He shows up at the doorstep. Now, what transpired after, what they said or did, that we don't know, nobody knows. He goes inside after an argument, he goes upstairs and he stabs the girl.
Our last story tonight isn't as much about Turkish pop culture as it is about politics. Tarkan is what you would call a megastar in Turkey. Tarkan has been famous in Turkey and abroad since the 90s. If you ask anyone here, they would probably say he was the 90s. You really can't overstate how big he is. Well, last night Tarkan dropped a new song, Geçecek. I roughly translated to "This too shall pass," and my God, it brewed up a storm. People loved it, people hated it, but nobody is indifferent about it. The political polarization was apparent in the comments, everything from savior of the people to paid opposition shill. But don't take it from me. This is Dr. Kenan Sharpe's wheelhouse, and he was kind enough to share his thoughts on the matter.
I'm very happy to be back on Medyascope to talk about Tarkan's latest song, because this new song really has set the world on fire for a moment. And I think one reason there's such buzz around it is that Tarkan, for one, hasn't released a solo song for quite a number of years. So fans have been naturally curious ever since he announced there was a new song coming. And everyone was sort of wondering what exactly it was going to be. And no one really knew that it would be a political song. All we knew is that the title of the song was Geçecek. So to be honest, it's sort of a silly title. It's a slang way of saying geçecek, meaning it will pass. But as soon as the song dropped, we saw on social media that people were discussing this song as a kind of political anthem. And it really has created a wide effect because Tarkan has enormous reach as an artist. It's not for no reason he's known as Turkey's megastar. So it's been less than 24 hours since Geçecek was released, and it's been viewed on YouTube almost 5 million times already. So what exactly about the song is political? It sort of depends how you read it. So the lyrics say things like, he will leave, he will leave, he'll leave just like he came. Everything has an end. This suffering will also end. He talks about how one day we'll all dance with bells, and we'll have days that are full of flowers and things like this. So, of course, there's no exactly proper names or particular politicians or parties mentioned in the song. It's all very general. It could be about the pandemic eventually coming to an end. It could be more general about people's sufferings or hardships coming to an end. But the timing, I think, is meaningful because it's in this moment where the political opposition in Turkey is starting to come together, it seems. They're meeting. There's general lots of frustration with the AKP, with the economic crisis. There's massive worker strikes going on in many sectors in Turkey. So for a song like this to say, it's all going to come to an end, he'll leave just like he came, it doesn't take, a rocket scientist to see what could be underneath the surface of lyrics like this. Also, the kind of, it will all pass, this too shall pass message, I think reminds a lot of people of İstanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu's famous campaign slogan, "Her şey çok güzel olacak." Everything will be wonderful, everything will be good. And then some opposition politicians, like the E-Party chair, Meral Akşener, has shared Tarkan's song with approval on social media and other politicians as well. But in terms of what makes it political, I think it's helpful to look at the music video too, which is actually quite interesting. We see Tarkan present himself as a hacker. He's in this dark room full of computer screens. He's writing code, and he presses enter, and all of a sudden, the music video is streamed live onto people's personal laptops, onto their telephones, their tablets, and onto kind of digital billboards across the city. So everyone simultaneously comes together, even if they weren't planning on it, and suddenly hear Tarkan's song. So there's a woman stuck in traffic in the music video. There's a guy working from home on Zoom. There's a young student taking her lessons online. All these kind of people on the metro, etc. And in this one moment when Tarkan suddenly makes his grand return, there's this kind of moment of joy and people begin dancing, etc. So on one level, this is the joy of Tarkan's grand return. On the other level, it sort of shows this kind of idea of a political moment where we would all come together and we would celebrate. And this could be meaning the end of the AKP era. It could just mean more generally better days to come. But I think in this moment we're living in, where so many people in Turkey feel like they're lacking hope and lacking joy and feel really quite pessimistic about what will happen to this country in the short and long term, I think any sort of song or event that can bring us together and make us dance and revel, I think has very much a political meaning. But of course, as much as there are positive comments and positive responses to the song, there's also negative criticism. And this really does remind us of a couple weeks ago when the diva Sezen Aksu was attacked for some lyrics of hers. And then many people had this great outpouring of support for that musician after she was attacked by people from all levels of the state, from the Turkey's media watchdog to comments from President Erdoğan that were interpreted as threatening Sezen Aksu. And in this case, too, in the less than 24 hours since the song's been released, we have pro-government journalists, the radical right newspaper Yeni Akit, various AKP politicians, etc., accusing Tarkan of either imitating the West in his music, of being under the pay of the main opposition CHP and writing them a campaign song, people accusing him of working for Fethullah Gülen, which is a favorite accusation among pro-government circles. But as much as this song has upset many people from the government side, it's actually a really careful song. Like I mentioned, it doesn't have explicitly political lyrics per se. It doesn't mention any politicians or any parties. And in this way, it actually really matches well what we've seen with Tarkan in recent years. So Tarkan has really come out increasingly as a sort of political figure, but in a very particular way. So he's commented about various environmental issues, about femicides in the country. And most recently, last time I was on Medyascope, we talked about the case of Enes Kara, a young medical student who killed himself after being forced into living in a socially conservative dorm run by a religious brotherhood. And Enes Kara, Tarkan at the time, in talking about Enes Kara, released a pretty strong statement on Twitter and talking about, we need to respect our children and their individuality and not pressure them into things and respect them. And people on social media, again, really responded favorably to Tarkan's political comments. And one actually addressed CHP chair Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu and said that, if Tarkan's going to be the one doing politics, then Kılıçdaroğlu should be the one putting out the new album. And of course, that was a reference to everybody really intensely longing and curious about when Tarkan was going to release new music. And now that he has released new music, we see that this kind of version of politics is similar to his statements about various issues. On the one hand, it's very openly political. On the other hand, it tries not to offend too many people. It tries to walk a sort of middle ground. It's not too partisan. It's not in favor of any particular party or movement, but it does put forward a certain attitude and a certain response. And I think people are really hungry for celebrities doing this. We live in a time when many, many famous people, from musicians to actors and actresses, etc., are really careful, especially the more famous they are, the more money they have, the more careful they are because there are serious risks in Turkey to making political statements. And as much as Tarkan tries to walk the middle line and not offend too many people, I think people are really excited that a figure with this great of a stature and this much of a reach through the wider Turkish public will say things that really reflect how they're feeling about politics in the country. So there's kind of a feeling that we might be entering this moment of pop protest, as some people have called it. With the Sezen Aksu situation a couple weeks ago, she released a very strong statement, in a way challenging censorship, saying she'll continue to write how she writes. The pop singer Gülşen also had been criticized for the clothing she wears on stage and came out with this really strong, almost manifesto on Instagram, talking about why women need to resist conservatism and no one should interfere in what they wear and how they appear. In this case, too, I think Tarkan will probably continue to be attacked by people close to or in the government. But I think at the same time, the fact that all they can do is accuse people of Tarkan of being stooges of foreign powers or being in the pay of the opposition actually shows how nervous they are about the kind of breaking of this ice, this kind of fear of saying anything that's been going on in Turkey for quite a while. So I think these outpourings of excitement for a song like Geçecek show how desperate people are in Turkey for these kind of public statements that reflect how they feel. And I think if artists can provide hope, or even if they can get people up and dancing, even if the message is vague, I think it has real political value.
And with that, that's it for us in This Week in Turkey. I have been Murat, Türsan, and thank you for joining us.
Türkiye'nin sivil, bağımsız, özgür ve çoğulcu bir medya ortamına ihtiyacı var. Medyascope 20 Ağustos 2015'te bu ihtiyacı karşılamak üzere yola çıktı. Ama yolumuz uzun. Bu yolculukta bize Patreon veya YouTube'un katıl butonu üzerinden katkıda bulunabilirsiniz. Destek verin, sizinle güçlenelim.